Music! I love doing that. It's so cool. Hey, I'm Michael Edward, creator of How to Crush Your Mental Blocks, which is a course that teaches you how to identify and remove the mental blocks that's keeping you stuck, stopping you from reaching your level of success. Hey, my friend, I am Michael Edward. Let's talk today about why some people become leaders and some people become followers. All right? Why is that? Why is that some people, they want to be leaders, but they end up being followers? We're going to cover 4 points in a bit that will help you out with that. Why is it that some people seem to climb the corporate ladder or move up in various levels of success and other people don't? All right? Is it because one person's smarter than the other person? I don't think so. Is it because, education? How much role does education have to play in all this? Well, let's go into this a bit. Education can have a role to play. Doesn't have to, but it can. I mean, obviously, if you want to be a doctor, you're going to school. But you can run a business without a lot of education. I think that early education, they fill their heads up with so much junk that I wonder sometimes how I can even get out of bed and brush my own teeth. There's so much stuff that we learn that's just not terribly useful. I'm not knocking the education system all the way. I know it teaches us how to think and it teaches us basic skills, or at least it's supposed to. But I don't think it prepares us as well as we'd like. And, the 4 points I'm going to cover here, I highly doubt is in any educational curriculum, which is unfortunate. But the question here is how much role does education play in success? I believe if you look at these statistics, it's going to tell you that people with higher education are more likely to reach a high level of success. Okay, I'm good with that. But does that mean that somebody who has never gone to school or higher education, does that mean that they're doomed to failure? No, of course not. It just means that they're not going to be a doctor. They're going to look at other options. They could have their own business. There's so many things that people can do to reach a high level of success without having to have a lot of education, okay? And as far as a smart thing is considered, I don't think that hardly anybody's above average in intelligence. I think that people are more dedicated than other people. I don't think intelligence has a lot to do with success. And in fact, I do believe this. Success is blind and deaf. She doesn't care what you look like. She doesn't care what you sound like. What success cares about is your actions that you take. What are your beliefs? Are you willing to do the work that you need to do? And that's a big differentiation between those that are successful and those that simply follow along, is those who follow along are not going to do the work that they need to do. All right? I remember in my first job years ago, I was a young guy. I was blind. I was about half deaf by then. No, I'm well over half deaf, but then I was about half deaf. And I started my first job in a large organization. And I had to prove myself, first to me, right? I had to prove that I was somewhere near as good as I thought I was. After struggling through college and everything, I thought, well, work life can't be any worse than this. And boy, was I right on that. Work life was so much easier than college. Anyway, I had to prove to myself as well as everybody around me that I could be good. I could be a good employee. And one of the things that I had to learn in this, I was working in a call center for a large organization that it was an extensive call database. So I would receive phone calls and they would ask questions, and I would need to go into this database to respond. And yes, I'm intentionally being very vague about the work that I did because I don't talk about it, because sometimes I talk not very flatteringly about some of the large organization jobs that I had in order to teach, okay? And I try not to do that, but example is often the best way. Anyway, I loved that place. I loved that job. It was my first job. It was a great experience. And I had to learn how to use the database program that they had. And I had to learn how to use the screen reading software that I used in that program because I never used it before. So I had a big learning curve, but I went through it as fast as I could, and I got on the phones. So I was going through this database program, and I realized that, this is really cumbersome. And maybe I was talking to somebody, maybe I came across something somewhere along the way, I really don't remember, but I found out that there was something called screen jumps, where you could go down to this sort of command line, and you could type in, go from this screen to that screen, without having to go backwards and go to the menu and choosing the menu that you wanted to go to next, okay? So when I started to discover this, and I started to realize that the screen titles were at the top of the screens, then I'm like, whoa, there's a short form up there. Maybe that's how you jump. And I figured all this stuff out. And when I did, I put together a list. I printed a list for my coworkers and for the team leader so that they could have a copy of it for new employees that came in and so on. And of course, I brailled myself a list in Braille until I memorized all the screens that I generally used. And it saved me a great deal of time. Some of my coworkers that chose to try it said it saved them a great deal of time. And by saving me a great deal of time, that also saved my client on the phone a great deal of time. So it was a real win-win for me. I had to learn all this basically on my own time because it was a call center. I had to be logged into the phones. You didn't get a lot of time between calls. Just depends, but most of the time it was steady. And, there was one call after another call after another call. So what I had to do was I had to come in on my own time. I came in a little bit early. I might have stayed a little bit late. I might have cut my lunch a little bit shorter. All right. I did stuff to help me find the time in order to learn these screen jumps so that I could pass on to others and save my clients more time. Okay. It was great. It was really something that was received well. And my manager found out about it, and she basically marked me as being one of those that was going to move up the ladder quickly, which of course I did. I moved up, 6 pay grades in 2 or 3 years. Unheard of. I've never heard of anybody that went up as fast as I did, starting from where I did and ending where I did. I'd never heard anybody blind or sighted that matched my record. So I'm pretty proud of that. But anyway, these are the kinds of things that I did to reach a high level of success. Now, you probably know my story by now. If not, check out my website. I think it's there, where I lost everything. I was depressed, all that stuff, and I had to start all over again, right? I had to come back to these 4 points many times to start over again, because I had a lot of mental blocks that I had to crush to be able to reach a high level of success again. Okay? So here are the 4 points. This is what's going to help you be a leader as opposed to a follower. Point number 1 is make your own decisions. All right? Stop following what other people say. Stop doing what other people do. You have to stand on your own 2 feet. You have to make up your mind to do things. Now, there are 2 kinds of, I'm going to call it negative talk. One is negative talk where they just trash you, right? They say, oh, you're no good. You're not smart enough to do that. You're And you need to eliminate negative talk everywhere, anywhere, as much as you possibly can, 100%. Stop hanging around with people that are negative and all that kind of stuff. Got to do that. But the other side of that coin is what some people will refer to as negative talk. I refer to as constructive criticism, where somebody may say to me, hey, Michael, you can't be a cab driver because you're blind and they won't give you a driver's license. Okay, I'm good with that. But if they tell me that, Michael, you're blind, and how are you going to run a camera? How are you going to upload that file to a computer and get it to YouTube and so on and so on, all the stuff that goes along with that, that you can't do any of that. And I sit back and I say, well, why can't I do any of that? I can find out where the record button is on a camera. I can take the card out and put it in my computer. I can upload it, So people may say that you can't do something because of this. And you need to consider whether this is something that you can overcome or not. All right. So that's more on the constructive criticism type side of things. But nonetheless, you need to decide who you're going to listen to. You need to decide what actions you're going to take. Because so many people will tell you so much stuff that's so much garbage. It may be okay for them, but it's not okay for you. All right. Intent is good, but results are not. So you need to make your own decisions. All right. Number 2 is plan your own work. When you learn to plan your own work and you're taking control of your life, all right? Now, I know that in a lot of scenarios when you're an employee, you can't necessarily plan out your own work. Like, for example, when I was working in that data center, the call center, I had to be on the phone between this time and this time, people relying on me to answer the calls, right? So I had to be on the phone. So I didn't have a lot of control over my own work. But what I did have control over was I had control over whether I came in early. I had control over what I tried to squeeze in between calls. And I had to control whether or not I was going to get frustrated because I was in the middle of something I was trying to do real quick and the phone rang. Of course I wasn't going to get frustrated. I'd just hang up the call and try again. It was like a game. Can I beat the phone? And all that kind of stuff. So you need to have as much control over your work as possible. You need to own it. All right? You need to own your work. So when you do that, you learn you're working at a whole other level, and it takes you to a higher level where you will stand out from the crowd. All right? So plan to own your work. All right? Now, number 3 is continuously show initiative. All right? Going back to my story, I showed initiative by finding out that, there are these screen jumps. Here's the result that we get if we use these screen jumps. We're going to save time for the clients and ourselves. And all of that kind of good stuff. And I got noticed by the manager, right? Team leader said, hey, do you know what Michael just figured out? Ta-da. And that was great. That was really cool. But it didn't end there. All right? I showed initiative all the time in all of my jobs. If I saw something that I could improve on, I would improve on it. In one job, I found out that the stats we were keeping were good at the managerial level, but if I crunched the numbers a little bit differently, they were more reflective, more accurate. And was the manager ever impressed when I came to him and showed him all that? Okay. So you see what I'm saying is you need to remain and show initiative all the time. Right? And you need to think beyond what your coworkers or friends or family think and say, is there a better way for me to do this? And I do this constantly. I'm blind. I have to do this all the time. I have to figure out what is the best way for me to do this. And then when I figure that out, I'm like, okay, how can I do it even better? Whatever the process is, I try and make it as good as I possibly can. All right. Number 4 is remain persistent. You need to remain persistent. If you are not persistent and consistent, you will lose every single time. Let that sink in. Persistence. You need to be persistent. You have to keep going. All right? So those are the 4 points. Number 1 is make your own decision, right? Number 2 is plan to own your own work. Number 3 is continuously show initiative. And number 4 is remain persistent. Number 4 is probably the most important of them all, because if you remain persistent on the rest of these 3 points, you're going to win. You have no choice but to win. But you need to dig in and say, you know what, I'm going to do whatever it is, and I am going to be persistent and consistent, and I am going to succeed. Okay? And when you do this stuff, you will finally start to reach your highest level of success. I hope this serves you. I hope you go through the video again. Read the blog. There's a lot more detail on the blog. The points are laid out for you with really good description, I think. So check out the blog or watch this video again. Take some notes. Apply it to yourself. If my examples do not suit you in your life, then think about it and apply it to yourself. All right? Information is only good when you can apply it to yourself. When you apply it to yourself, then it sinks in and you are off and running. All right? So I want you to go out there, enjoy every day, love as much as you can, and succeed. Hey, if you enjoyed the video, please like it, share it. Click on that subscribe button, click on that bell icon to adjust your notifications so you'll never miss another video from me again. In the description, there's links including mepersonaldevelopment.com where we help you reach your highest level of success.